Welcome to Booked All Night Season 2. Each week, Jess, Katie, and Maggie launch into new worlds, discover amazing characters, and bring you the best bookish discussions under the stars. We're a cozy little corner of the internet, so be sure to leave a comment and join the polls after each episode. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a chapter. All right, my little Libranauts, grab a seat, grab a book, and join us as we explore some new pages. Before we dive into today's episode, we want to provide a brief trigger warning. This episode discusses topics that may be distressing for some listeners. We encourage you to take care of yourself and skip this episode if you feel it may be triggering. Your well-being is important to us. Thank you for listening. Okay, so I finished last week and I was upset. Well, not finished, but, got to chapter 40 last week. And I was upset, but I didn't want to ruin it and get everybody else upset. So I waited for people to catch up to me. And at 12:21 p.m. today, Maggie texts me. And I went, caught up on reading them. She's like I saw it coming, but come on. Yes, it makes everything complicated between them, but still. And so we have decided that while last week we opened up on groans of like, wow, this was so good, that we would like to open up on groans of
Like, it's a fun read, don't get me wrong. I'm enjoying the trash, but this was so clearly, what's the word? You could see it coming from a mile away with all of their headlights on and squeezing up, honking little telegraph. Thank you. That is the word I was looking for.
That's why we pay him exactly $0, because
we don't have any money. Oh, we really should find a sponsor, huh?
We should.
But anyway, it's been telegraphed since the very beginning. I'm pretty sure like chapter 2.
Ugh. Yeah. For those at home, Rune is the missing heir, which, we knew, right? We've said it every single podcast, and we've definitely been like, I really hope that it's not, but it definitely is. Because it's definitely been like, oh, I wonder who it could be. They look exactly like Rune. No, obviously they didn't say that, but that's the feel that I get.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna skip straight to my notes about that because I was pissed.
Is it just the word bitch 10 times over every single line?
The specific point is, surprise, Rune is the heir. Boo.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just jump toward the end of this because I am no, you know what? I'm going to start this whole podcast with I am angry about Rune being the heir, and we will get to that at the end.
And also being really dumb.
Oh my god, so dumb.
Ugh. But yes, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This whole section, when you want to reach into a book and just throttle the characters back and forth.
Yeah, that's how I've been feeling for 252 pages.
It's weird, right? Because obviously we're having fun reading this. We are involved in this. We are thinking critically about this. So it's obviously holding our interest. But the annoyance is real. And I think that's a really good sign of really good craft writing. But at the same time, I want to throttle Rune and Gale. I want to take their heads and smash them together in a non-romantic way because I just want to knock some sense into them and just you two are so stupid. And I've had the week to think about it, right? Because I read my 10 chapters literally the night after we finish recording because I'm impatient.
I can't do that because I will forget come the next day. So I wait till Wednesday night or Thursday, and I'm not highlighting. You think I read sitting up? I don't read in reach of a pen or a marker. I lay in bed and I read, usually without my glasses on.
Well, I have a notebook and a highlighter because also in between this, I read other books and whatever. Anywho, there were some lines that I highlighted this time because I thought it was really good, showing how you can be in third person and get into somebody's thoughts, right? Like the lens can come and go, as it were. And I also I have a lot of sass in my notes this week, right? Just why?
Color me shocked.
Yeah, everybody is shocked. Everybody, every last person that's ever seen me take notes. So So chapter 31. We'll just start there. We'll just go right in order like we normally do. Everybody has to put up with the other things that I didn't like about this particular 10 chapter section before we get to the end where I'm just like, I'm going to crack these two upside the head together with their own heads and just bam. One, I forgot that Nicholas Creed had died.
Me too.
I've had time to sit with it and be like, why did I forget this? Right? Because it was a big thing. He got executed by Cressida. She literally kills him in the middle of the uprising. And I'm like, okay, why did I forget that? And then not long after that, we learned that Gideon had buried Noah Creed himself just after he buried Alex. And I was like, oh, that's why. Because there was like 20 references about Alex being dead. Did you know that Alex is dead because Alex is dead? And I get it, right? Like that's his brother. Of course, we're going to get this man is dead. But there was like no early reminder besides this one. This is 31 chapters in before the reminder that this other character had died.
Yeah, like there was a point when they first got back to the Republic and Rune's like, I want to go back to Wintersea. And Gideon's like, you can't. Noah Creed owns that now. That would have been a perfect time to be like, yeah, he took control of that place after he got the commander post. Yeah. That would have been great. I forgot who the fuck Nicholas was. There were a few points in this whole section that I felt like that information should have come sooner, or this scene and this argument should have happened aboard the Arcadia. But no, you were too busy sucking face with Abby.
He gets called out on that. They both get called out on sucking face with everybody.
Yeah, they do. They finally talk.
Sort of.
They finally kind of talk. Enough that it, like, soothes my irks,
yes,
as it were.
Yes.
Enough that I don't longer need to smash them together.
No, I still need to smash them together. This was definitely something that I thought should have come earlier. There's a whole section, I think it's 212 to 213. I could find it in here because I cite my notes. Ha 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 ha. That night on the ship when we kissed, you pulled away like I was, like you were what? Like I was a horrifying monster. Well, that's not. And then he starts taking off his jacket because he's obviously going to show her the scar. Like, what are you doing? I'm putting this to rest right now. Putting what to rest? This ludicrous idea that you repulse me. I do repulse you. You said so yourself. And he's like, what? When? And she calls him out. It's the day that you handed me over to be purged. You said you weren't sure what disgusted you more, the fact that I was a witch or that you fell for my act. He's like, Rune, you betrayed me in the worst possible way. I just discovered you were the criminal I'd spent 2 years hunting, not to mention secretly betrothed to my brother. I was heartbroken. You told me Alex was twice the man I'd ever be. Yeah, you were handing me over to die. Fair enough. Since we're airing our grievances, it kills me watching you seduce other men. Because it's cruel, I got it. Not because of that. And then they both kind of go back and forth where it's like, oh, well, I didn't like you. I didn't like knowing that you kissed Abby. Well, I didn't like watching you kiss that stupid prince. There's this one part of you have no idea the kinds of things I've had to do to stay alive. She said, I have some idea. His eyes hardened. And then they start kissing. And so I was happy to see this conversation finally happening because it has needed to happen, but I think it would have been better suited aboard the Arcadia.
Yeah. Kind of like, I don't know if right after, he sends William off or before then, but still it has been too long since the Abby moment, I think, for this to have as much weight as it could have. Yeah. And right afterwards, they immediately start kissing and blah, 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 blah. It just kind of reminded me of a musical. Obviously not the sex. I mean, I'm sure there's some musical out there, right? But in that, as the emotions build in the scene, they immediately start kissing and hugging and screwing around and touching each other in places, and there's no scene so far where they start to get to the height of these emotions and admit like, oh, I still love you, I still have feelings for you, but you really hurt me, and having that admission that they were hurt without all this kissing. And like, I love it. It's trash. It's why I'm reading it. I'm not sitting there like, oh my God, I can't believe there's so much kissing in my romance book. But you know what I mean? Like, it just interrupts it. There's yet to be the actual
explosion of you hurt me. We hurt each other. Mm-hmm. There has yet to be this apology. And we're like halfway into it. I don't want the apology. Yeah, there's lots of boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, chicka boom. But there's no, hey, I delivered you to be killed, right? His response is, fair enough.
Yeah, that like kicked me right out of the story, honestly. That just felt so, Jesus Christ almighty. I feel like they were edging towards...
They were edging towards something.
Yes. It's bad because I was going to finish that sentence to almost finishing the conversation and the apology and then the confrontation. Because, you know, oh, you betrayed me, I betrayed you, you betrayed me worse, blah, 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 back and forth. And then is just... I don't know, because on one hand, I liked the scene in the fact that I enjoy like trashy romance scenes where they have to whisper at each other while they're hiding from someone and like forced proximity. That's my jam. I love that in romance scenes. But no, I agree. This 100% should have been a conversation done 100 pages ago.
And I think the impact of it would have hit more on the Arcadia if this was the conversation that led them to this amount of kissing, right? So like if the kissing in the party had just been kissing, you know, like not this huge deep emotional thing where they're both like, oh yes, I love you, and they're opening up to each other, and they'd both gone their separate ways after that, and then in the room had this argument, I think that would have made a more logical sense than we're a couple days past that, right? We woke up the next day, we docked, Gideon got arrested, and now they've gone to something else. We're like 4 or 5 days past. No,
we're only like 2 days when the conversation happens because he gets arrested. They come home, they have dinner, and it's a day. It's not even 24 hours because he comes home from dinner and he comes home from the commander's office, and he's like, hey, Rune, let's make some dinner. She wants dinner, but he's like, no, we're going to go do a heist right now. Let's go kidnap a little child.
You are correct, I believe. And there's also a note in there, because Rune's like, I could learn to cook. How hard could it be?
Girl. Aristocratic girl who's never had to lift a hand for anything except for rescuing witches. You don't have a single life skill.
But so there's before Rune comes in with the fact that she doesn't have a single life skill, which blows my mind because of all the stuff that she's done as the Crimson Moth. You're telling me you can shimmy down like a drain pipe, but you can't make yourself toast. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
In that moment, I was hit with like, that makes sense. She's an aristocrat. She wouldn't know basic cooking skills. But on the other hand, she's been on her own with like just Elizabeth. She didn't learn any life skills during that point. That's that's fishy, especially considering the vigilantiness of it. But prior to Gideon coming home, we get some information out of Aurelia the Sibyl, and we have a really, really rough scene where the Bloodguard brings in her daughter, and they're like, hey, we have a question. And she was like, piss off, I'm not answering you. And they're like, oh, okay, bring the child in and put her hand on the desk, and they're going to chop it off.
Yeah.
So I really liked that scene, because
Yes, I know you did. You love
murder. Murder is good. But I liked that scene because it's what I've been wanting in a villain, like in a desperate villain. Is so many of the bad guys that I read anymore have these like monologues, right? And they're like in that monologue, somebody can formulate a plan to solve world hunger, to be honest, because they're so unnaturally long. But here, Noah was like, I have a question and you have an answer. And she was like, piss off. And he was like, okay, bring the kid in. Like immediately. There was not, I'm going to give you a second chance. He was just like, I'm going to do this. And she's like, wait, here's the answer. And I like that. It solves a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like stalling that a villain's monologue tends to have. And I don't know yet that Noah is like the villain. But character-wise, his father was just murdered. in the name of the rebellion. He
Mm-hmm.
now has all of this responsibility to go through. And in his eye, you know, he's always been told that witches are bad. He also, he's old enough, he would have experienced the Witch Queen's era and seen how terrible that was.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's trying to stop an invasion because Gideon, the problem on the continent, as he refers to him, has come back and kidnapped, kind of. I mean, she kidnapped her damn self, but like has, as far as everybody else is looking at it, has kidnapped Rune, just a fiance of Cressida's ally. So yeah, I wouldn't have any patience either. I don't know that I'd be like, hey, put the 4-year-old's hand on the desk so I can chop it off kind of patience. But there would be, there's a line. He's over that line. He has crossed the threshold into like having any semblance of ethos.
Morality?
Yeah, that too.
Like he makes some bad choices, but it's not like we don't understand the bad choices.
Yes.
Given the situation and the context in which he has grown up and the current, you know, political affair of their entire country, being so young and thrust into his father's position so suddenly, you know. This is why we don't have a sponsorship, because we keep making dirty innuendos.
Innuendo. I'm sorry. I would like to note that later on, I get to make a wet and has a pulse joke because Rune was wet.
Oh my god.
So,
yeah, she was wet.
She was wet. So, in this scene, just after we don't chop off the hand of a 4-year-old, Aurelia explains the missing heir, and I have questions and complaints because I always do, right? So it's Cressida's mother, Queen Winoa, had a 4th child with her 2nd husband, but the sickly thing died in childbirth. The queen never fully recovered from her grief. For years, she heard it crying at night and would wander the palace halls in search of it. But the child didn't die. The midwife lied and sent it away in the night to save it from the royal family's dysfunction, to fulfill a prophecy, or stop one from coming true. It's unclear. And that's just the dialogue of that scene. I cut out the stage action in it just to make it shorter. This would have been like nice information to have a book ago.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I also... It raises a lot of questions, right? Like, okay, who was the midwife and why did she actually take her away? And I know from reading Heartless Hunter and from other chapters in here, like, we'll probably get answers to this in the next 10 chapters. But, like, I don't know. It feels lazy.
Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the singular moment when that happens. There's a lot of things that would have been great to know last chapter. Number 1, the forgotten heir. But also in this 10 chapter stretch, we also get the fact that some witches experience visions of the past, future, or present that, you know, not necessarily being Sibyls. And that just kind of came out of left field because, oh, look, suddenly Rune can see the future. And like, yeah,
or can she?
Yeah, or is she just hallucinating because she's, you know, Rune?
So there was a lot about this that I was just like, one, all the questions that raises. We immediately after that, Aurelia sings a lullaby and we get to watch Gideon kind of like shift back and forth his worldview again, which we have only ever been watching him shift his worldview back and forth over this duology. And I get it, right? That shift doesn't happen overnight, but to be like, okay, so you've realized they're not all bad, but they are all bad, but they're not all bad, but they are all bad. And the thing that gets him crossed up here is Aurelia sings a lullaby to Meadow that his mother used to sing to him. And for a moment, he was like, oh, they are people.
Yeah.
And then he's like, no,
Like, I know we would be so upset if he had this world-changing point of view shift once, and then we're like, oh, it happened overnight. What the heck? We'd be so pissed about it. But at this point, this is like the 6th time this book where he has this waffling. Like, bro, that's enough waffles. Put the syrup down.
Gideon shifts his worldview more than John Kerry did when he was running for president.
Oof.
So then we get into Rune not knowing how to cook, and we see that Alex had a boat.
Yeah. Just a random sailboat.
He just had a random sailboat that apparently he took out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
2, Gideon didn't sell it, which becomes important for 3, because at the end of this section, Rune is like, hey, I'm going to use that boat and get across the Barrow Strait.
Yeah, that's just boat ex machina right there.
Boat ex machina, but also one of the times where I just wanted to reach in and grab her and be like, you're not getting across a 3-day journey in a little dinghy boat.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. On a sea that has been canonically described as rough and choppy.
Yeah.
Without storms. Like, bro, that's drowning right there. That's not escaping.
Sometimes characters make decisions, and I'm reminded of this tag. It's like an old tag. I don't see it used anymore, but it was too stupid to live. And that's how I feel about Rune sometimes when she's like, I'm going to take this boat across the Barrow Strait and I'm going to be fine.
Yeah. It also becomes really evident when she wakes up the next morning after the summoning. I'm kind of skipping ahead a couple chapters, so I'll backpedal and we can recap the next moment.
The chocolate on the finger.
Oh, Jesus, that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
That was just... I thought, like, I would have been fine with it if he popped his thumb into his own mouth, but Rune? Boy, we're not... No, stop. Girl, that's unsanitary, please.
Girl. First off, that's unsanitary. Second off...
It's awkward. You're in public.
You're in public. And 2, chocolate ain't that good. Save it for the bedroom. I have that here because it's right after she sees the boat. She's like, oh, good, the boat's there. I'm going to use it, blah, blah, blah. But pulling off his riding glove, he brushed his thumb across her lip. When he drew his hand away, the pad of his thumb was smeared with chocolate. Gideon studied it as if he didn't know what to do. He knows what to do. He offered it back to her. Rune didn't hesitate. It was chocolate after all. Awkwardness of this scene aside, where she's just like, chocolate on your finger, blah. That's the sound clip for the week. Just blah.
You're like, y'all are on the street. Y'all are in, the neighborhood Gideon lives in. People know him. Like, have some shame. Whatever happened to shame?
New sticker for the podcast. Whatever happened to shame? Just...
Glad to contribute.
Yes, thank you. She's wet and she has a pulse. Whatever happened to shame? But awkwardness of this whole scene aside, I also thought it was a really good moment of the lens shifting, right? So like everything in here is third person. All the viewpoints are third person. We're usually away from the character to kind of get like the whole body shot in film terms. And this gets closer to it because we have just this little line, like, it was chocolate after all. I don't know of any chocolate that could make me forget that a man wants to kill me, but it's fiction. Okay. But this is one of those little things, just a little line. And so like as a writer, it's one of those things that I want to highlight because it demonstrates that the lens doesn't have to stay in a fixed position regardless of your voice. Like even if it were a first person narrative, we could still get a sweep and a pull out as we get some retrospective what's happening in the scene. Yeah. And then they almost talk again.
Yeah. For like 2 seconds.
That's what I feel like all of these talks are. We're like, okay, we're finally starting to say something. And then we don't.
And then someone pulls out a gun. The line that really stuck for me. So they eventually managed to get the child out of the house where she's been, holed up in. And, not to... stealthily, I might add. It did end in a rain of bullets.
Stealth? What stealth? They were so stealthy they had time to go to an office and bound chicka wow for just actually they had time to bounce because they didn't have time to chicka wow bounce. Bounce because the bullets started flying. Bounce. Yeah.
But. And that's like an emotional moment where you think, oh, he's finally like kind of coming around because Gideon's like, you need to cast your Ghostwalker spell and take this child and run. I'll draw their attention. I'm like, oh, that feels very self-sacrificey. And it felt like a good moment.
But then you remember that he told
Yeah.
the captain to give him free reign for everything. So really, he's not in any sort of trouble, but Rune and the child are.
Yep. Like they, because he ends up going back to Noah's office, and like Harrow and Lila are there, and they're like, "What the hell was that? Why did you open up fire on a bunch of soldiers where we're keeping a hostage?" And he's just like, "Trust me, bro."
Yeah.
But they make it back to his house. Yeah.
Producer Rob raises a very good point about Chandler's Law.
Yeah.
Right? We've got a problem. There's no more plot for this novel.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking that this entire story arc could have been one book, but it was chopped up in half, and then a bunch of filler was added after the fact. Like more world building and more details were added in after the fact.
It's weird because I only feel about that for like this section of it, like for just Rebel Witch, because I felt like Heartless Hunter was very well done and paced and thought out. And I agree that this was like maybe the back, I don't know, 15,000 words. Maybe 20,000, I don't know. It's fantasy, probably 30,000 to be honest, because it's fantasy. And someone went, this is a good place to end it, instead of just doing like part 2. It's so obnoxious.
Yeah, I could only think it's either like a word count issue where the publisher didn't want to, send out a tome. I don't know if this is Kristen Ciccerelli's debut or not.
It is not.
But it felt like it was sold as one book, and then someone was like, you know what, we can make this a duology. Duologies are hot right now.
Yeah.
Because, yeah.
The other thing with that is that I know a lot of publishers are currently looking for shorter novels, especially across like Kidlit, and like in the US, this is considered young adult. In the UK, this would probably be new adult, because the US is like, get out of here with your commie new adult system, because God forbid we have appropriately aged categories for children's lit, but whatever. And I saw one person saying that like middle grade, they're looking for like 35,000 words for all middle grade.
What?
Yeah. For those of you, for those of you at home not quite understanding, 35,000 words is like 2 chapter books. If you're writing lengthier chapter books, that is very, very short, especially for middle grade, which tends to be 35,000 for lower middle grade, which is when you're just coming out of reading on your own. But upper middle grade, which was where I write, which is that weird cross between young adult and middle grade, they still want to do 35,000 words. No. And it's like, and here it's because kids are reading shorter, so they're not looking for lengthier novels. And I'm like, I get that, but you're not gonna swing them to reading by cutting out like the meat and potatoes of a good book. And I say that as someone that used to be an educator, not just as a writer today, but like, you're gonna put out something that's 35,000 words, and then they're going to be like, wow, this sucks because I don't understand anything in it. Nothing makes sense. Yeah,
that's Jesus Christ. That's not great.
Yeah. And so I wonder if you are correct that this was sold as one book and they were like, let's do a duology because then we can sell 2 short versions of it.
Short. Rebel Witch is a little thick.
Yeah, Rebel Witch is a little thick. It's about 500 pages, but that is 500 pages with, I'd say, about an inch margin, half-inch margin.
That's true. The type is very, very large.
Yeah.
It's young adult sized.
Okay, so back to complaining, because we are coming up to
yeah.
So Rune has a vision, and she foresees Gideon's future, and he's got kids, and she's like, oh, isn't that nice for him? And then she comes back and Gideon confirms that she has had a vision, because he's like, your eyes, they were weird. But we don't know that Rune's visions are true. But also, I hate future sight as a plot device, because I either feel lied to or I feel like something has been spoiled for me.
Yeah.
Neither of which make me feel good.
They're probably going to be true just by the nature of this book. All the feelings that we've had about the lost heir and all that has happened so far have been pretty on point, and I feel like they're going to be true, especially because she has a second vision later that I'm just like, I read and I'm immediately like, okay, this is gonna, come to fruition, except it's gonna turn out she's got a bulletproof vest on.
Oh, I have theories, but first let me complain about her being the heir.
Yeah.
Welcome to 40 minutes of Jessica complaining about 10 chapters.
So, just a weekly episode here at Booked All Night.
A weekly episode here at Booked All Nights. I am looking specifically for... Here's my list about things. First off, I hate the vision, right? That's where we are right now. I hate the vision. The gunshots bring her back to present, and, like, it's present. It's notably like, oh, right, this is happening. And then we have the whole paragraph where Rune is like, well, I never really thought that I would have a future anyway, right? It's back to, like, I always figured I would be, in truth, she'd never given much thought to her future. Never really believed she would have one. Rune had always expected to be caught and purged, if not today, then tomorrow, and if not tomorrow, at some point thereafter. She still expected it. So, fine, she still expects to die, and I mean, like, she literally comes back out of this vision with the sound of gunshots. Of course, she expects to die, right? So we know that Aurelia can see what will happen, but we can only assume Rune's vision is also true. Like, we don't have anything that says that she's, like, skilled enough or that that's a natural occurring talent to have. So I feel like I feel like it's meant to show us that she's going to be Gideon's wife.
Yeah, it very much gives End of Catching Fire.
Yeah.
Or whatever the last book of Hunger Games was called. I can't remember. It's been like 10 years.
Hunger Games, Mockingjay, Catching Fire, right?
Mockingjay, not the last one?
I think Mockingjay is the last one. Okay.
Yeah, it's giving Mockingjay epilogue. Because, like, the second we found out, some witches can have visions, I'm like, oh, she's going to have this goddamn power. And it's all because of her super special secret roseblood air powers.
It's all because of her roseblood blood. I hate that. No, I do. I hate that. Because I felt the same way. And, like, every episode that we've had about it, I've been like, please don't. Please don't. Please don't. And then I got to that part and it was just like...
Curse my pattern recognition at still being disappointed by it.
Yeah. It is very weird to be well-read. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, because I'm so educated, I can see all these patterns. No, if you're a reader and you read all the time, you're going to recognize patterns. Oh, there's a missing heir. I bet it's my female main character because it's very... Actually, I can't think of a single male that has ever fallen into this trope on my reading list. I'm sure it exists. I can't think of one off the top of my head that they surprisingly are the missing heir without knowing it or having suspected it. All right, Wheel of Time. But he's not an heir, he's a resurrection. This one is 20 years ago, my parents gave me away under mysterious circumstances, but I was told that they died very Harry Potter-esquely. And now I'm the heir, and I'm wet, and I'm in a field, and I'm glowing, and I can see the future. And even when she cast the Earth Sunderer in the last book, it was really powerful. And she didn't pass out, and she got to use somebody else's blood. And, like, that was the first time that she used somebody else's very fresh, dead blood. Like, and so she's already got this Prue syndrome, which is, my 90s coming out. But for those of you who might be younger, there are a couple of you, according to our podcast statistics. There once was a show called Charmed. And there were 3 sisters, and they found out that they were witches and that their grandmother had bound them so they couldn't cast anything. They came together after the grandma died. The powers came back. And Prue, the eldest, had control of her powers while the other 2 did not. And that's what it feels like with Rune, that she didn't have a formal training. If she did have anything with Seraphine, it was like
a month. Yeah. It was like a month in there too. Like it was however long she was on the mainland, like maybe 2 months max. And even then I'm pretty sure she wasn't even given like freedom to learn a lot of things, because I guarantee you Cressida would have been like, I don't want anyone getting stronger than me.
Yeah.
I'm very sad we didn't get any Seraphine moments in the book so far.
Yeah.
We probably won't, given that we're like almost at the end. We're like 30 chapters from the end.
Yeah, this is going to surprise you, but I have complaints about that. So then Aurelia and Rune cast the spell and they wait. And there's this line about the ancients and how this stone circle was where they used to summon the ancients. Like there's this nice little quip of world building where it's the air here smelled like magic, deep and primal. It made Rune's skin tingle, as if the ancients had been here moments before, as if this was the doorway they'd use to exit the world. Not that Rune believed such things. And I was like, you're a witch. You have powers, but you don't believe in the gods. What a weird thing, especially because in the last book, one of the things that she misses the most are the statues of the ancients, because a lot of them have been destroyed. And I'm like, well, do you do or do you don't, baby? Like, do you want these or not? Also, then there's that fight with Aurelia where she like pulls a gun on Gideon and she's like, whatever he made you believe, it's not true. He's going to betray you. And I would like to do a find and replace on this book of the word betray. Because betrayal doesn't have the same emphasis if you tell me every chapter someone's going to betray somebody.
Yeah. It's just too much. Anyone can betray anyone, and it is getting on my nerves. Like, there's only so many times you can repeat something before it gets stale. Like, I am tired of this, Grandpa. Please move on. Bad. Yeah.
And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of this repetition happening. There's the, Alex is dead. Did you know Alex was dead? Did you know everybody's going to betray everybody? Did you know about the missing Roseblood heir? Because nobody knows about the missing Roseblood heir. And then it turns out to be Rune, which I don't know if I've made this clear. I really hated. And Gideon ends up being the point of view that we learn that in. So Gideon obviously follows them. He's watching from a cave in the distance. And he's like, oh, if it hadn't been night, I would have missed her. And a glowing figure walks into the circle and lays down, and it's Rune. And he says, his point of view says, the adopted granddaughter of Kestrel Winters was a Roseblood princess, daughter of Queen Winoa, half-sister to Cressida, heir to the Roseblood throne, and no one knew. And I would just like to point out the list of people who knew. That would be Kestrel Winters, the midwife, Gideon, Rune, and literally everyone reading the book, because this foreshadowing was so heavy. There was nothing in here that dissuaded me from thinking it would be Rune. There was nothing that, like, in Heartless Hunter, on the reread, I was like, you know what? There are some things where I could believe that Cressida might be Lisbeth, right? There were just a few things, like she can come and go as she pleases, whatever. In here, it was like, oh, I don't know who it might be, but it's like, don't we know?
It feels like it's been delivered with a very, like, overplayed up wink to the camera,
Yeah.
The next chapter, after, Gideon makes his revelation, Rune wakes up after having another quote-unquote vision dream, but this time about Gideon shooting her in the chest.
She's wet, and she has a pulse.
But she's just like, oh no, I can't believe the summoning failed. Like, girl, please.
This is one of the moments where I was like, I want to take your head, and I want to bonk you with something. Because holy hell, girl, if I cast a spell to summon the missing person and I woke up where that missing person was supposed to be, my first thought would be, well, crap, I'm the missing person.
Yeah, Rune, you're just...
That bothered me as well. I don't know if this is coming across that I was bothered by this whole 10 chapters. In Heartless Hunter, the stupid heiress bit is an act. And there's a lot of very smart things that she does and a lot of on the fly things that she does. And here she's licking chocolate off of somebody's finger. She's like trusting someone and not making plans that they aren't going to outright betray her, even though she overheard them saying that they're going to do it.
Even though she has empirical proof of it happening in the past.
Yes. Like, girl.
It feels like it stopped being an act to be the stupid heiress, and she just took it on a little bit too literally. She method acted so hard she became the stupid heiress. Like, it's just... I
want to reach in and bonk their heads together. Like, I just do. Between them not talking, between them not admitting things to themselves, between them doing stupid things and making stupid plans and not realizing things. And I just...
Is this what it feels like to be a teacher, but your students aren't picking up what you're trying to teach them?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I got a frame of reference now. Jeebus.
It's on par with when they repeat the things back to you, and then you give them a test, and they're like, no, we never learned this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which brings us up to speculations and further thoughts. My honest to God speculation is that Rune and Gideon wind up happily ever after. I barf a little and then get mad about it. Like,
I wanted that, but now that we got the vision of it, I don't want it out of spite. It's like when someone tells you to do the thing you were planning on doing, and you were like, well, now I'm not going to do it. Screw you. Do your own dishes.
My pathological desire to see characters fail. Yeah, no, it's healthy. It's fine. It's fine.
I feel like the visions are going to become true, but with a twist. She's going to be wearing the bulletproof armor when she gets shot, because we already get the description of her being struck by a bullet while she's wearing the witch's armor spell. And I'm like, all right, she woke up with a similar feeling the next morning after this vision. Jesus. It's probably going to overthrow both Cressida and Noah, and they're going to take the throne and live happily ever after in a medium in between.
I hope not.
Fascist, leadership.
Fat royals.
Foicists? That just sounds like something a Jewish grandmother would just yell at you over the dinner table.
Yeah, don't be foicist.
Yeah. Is that going to be the new sticker? Don't be foicist.
Don't be foicist. No, because they are, right? So, like, Noah takes over after Nicholas, and I'm like, that's really weird that your son becomes the next commander-in-chief when you're actively fighting against royals. And you're like, oh, royalty is bad, but my son can take over after me. That's cool. Because there weren't, like, any other commanders or generals around him, I guess? I don't know.
There's not really a lot of detail on the leadership structure in this republic other than commander and everyone else.
I mean, I think that's part of the point, is that they weren't prepared to really take control and be in control, other than we just want to murder everybody that's a witch.
Yeah, it's very much that meme of, I don't know, I didn't think we'd get this far. Standing in a pool of witch's blood.
Yeah. One citizen, one vote. He was the citizen. He had the vote.
That's true.
Speaking of, their horses' names are just their roles in society, right? Because Rune's horse is Lady and Gideon's horse is Comrade.
Yeah. So Harrow or Lila, I forget who, but in one of the meetings that Gideon has after he gets arrested,
Harrow.
Harrow refers to him as Comrade. Has that happened before? And I just forgot, because that felt out of the blue.
That, I think, happens like once or twice in Heartless Hunter. But yeah, definitely felt out of the blue and just very Russian translated literature. And it was weird. I was like, okay. Because we're going full fascist regime. I'm in, all right. All right, so one of my other theories that I hope happens, but probably won't happen, but I hope happens as I speculate fixing this book in a way that I want to see things done, is that Rune gets shot, right? Because we've seen this a couple times now where she's dreaming about it, she's had the vision about it, blah, 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 blah. So my theory is that Rune gets killed, right? We've seen this occur in visions a couple times. It's obviously going to have the twist, and I think that the twist is that Cressida's death is going to be used to resurrect Rune, because in order to do the resurrection spell, it has to be done by a family member. Well, it has to have the blood of a family member. So that is my theory that I hope happens, but probably won't. But I have other questions, because so far there haven't been a lot of loose ends, right? Like, we haven't really seen things be like, okay, well, we've dropped this and then we don't find out information about it. So will the ability to summon the ancients in this circle come up later?
Probably not. This feels like one of those like last minute world building bits that got kind of sprinkled in at the end, like a little Salt Bay. Just referencing all the old memes. But I feel like it's not going to be something that comes up again. Though it has happened before.
Surprise, Rune is an ancient. Oh, yeah. But so one of the things that they mention is the turmoil between the royal family and possibly prophecy as reasons for Rune getting taken away from Queen Winoa. And I'm like, could we maybe just canonically set in stone what it was? I hate both of these options, but could we just say one or the other? So I'm hoping the next 10 chapters that gets answered. I also want to see Seraphine again because we literally spent an entire book looking for her. And
and we get her for a chapter and a half, I think. Yeah.
I think she's probably Harrow's contact. And I just, could we maybe, just, we spent a long time looking for this woman just for her to kind of fall back to being a background character. Also, where's Cressida? Because everyone's always like, oh, she's going to be here in days. She's going to be here. She's coming. She's invading. She's got Soren's army. She's coming across the Barrow Strait. And as we know, it only takes 3 days. So they would at least see some ships. There'd be reports that, she's getting close. And there's nothing. Rune and Gideon aren't even really talking about her getting close. They're just like, oh, well, she wants to use the air to resurrect her sisters. Good, glad. We all agree this is bad news, right? The other two sisters are worse than Cressida. All three of them together completely DSM 5, 6, 7 through 10 psychopaths, right? Shouldn't we be worried about where she is at all times and asking the Sibyl to be like, hey, do you see her army coming? Do you see the fleet coming? Do you know what her plans are? Can you do anything? But no. We're like, no, we're going to take a little dinghy across the Barrow Strait. And on top of that, this little dinghy is going to run into that fleet that's coming across the Barrow Strait.
Yeah, Rune, that was just not fully thought out, huh? Which is no surprise when it comes to Rune and her recent plans.
What is thinking? We don't do that. And my last question that I want answers to is, why are the Rosebloods so special? Other than, claim to the throne, what makes them special?
Are they descendants of the ancients? What makes this bloodline specifically, one, so strong, and two, royal? Who knows? Will we ever get the answer? Probably not.
What is thinking? We don't do that is also
a lot of great quotes tonight to become stickers. Yeah.
Curse by pattern recognition, but those are my aggravated thoughts. And there were good parts here that I will obviously be adding to my writer's toolbox as good examples. Like I said about the lens moving, that's always a good thing to have good examples of. But man, there was a lot I just, as a reader, did not like.
Yeah. I don't think she's going to get to Alex's sailing boat. I don't even think she's going to be able to leave the dock. I feel like either Gideon is going to catch her, or she's going to get stopped by Harrow or Lila or Noah, one of the named blood guards. And I don't even know what comes after that. I just don't think she's getting anywhere on that boat.
I think if she does get anywhere, that the boat's going to break and either Cressida picks her up out of the ocean or Gideon does.
It's going to be that one scene in Moana at the very beginning before she knows how to sail out of the reef. Yeah,
just whoop. Nope, we're not doing that. That's it. Do you have anything else to add? Yeah.
I'm scared. I'm nervous. I don't want to see what happens next because these 10 chapters have taken all of my hope for this book out and dropped it out through a window.
I swear to God, if one more thing upsets me, I don't know, because
gonna DNF it 50 chapters in.
No, because we need the content, so we're just gonna keep reading. That's a wrap on this episode of Booked All Night. We'd love for you to be a part of the conversation, so don't forget to rate the show, drop a comment, and share your thoughts in the episode poll. And remember, subscribing means you'll never miss an episode or interview as we launch into more amazing stories together. Booked All Night is produced by Rob Cook and his cats. So when you share your favorite episode, be sure to tag us at Booked All Night Pod on Threads, Instagram, and Facebook, and say hi to our guy in the sound booth. For more information, like reading schedules and dates on our upcoming interviews, check out the link in the show notes. That's link.bio/bookedallnight. lnk.bio/bookedallnight for those of you who don't check the show notes. Until next time, my little Libernauts, this is Jessica Mary, Kay Leigh, Magdalyn Ann, and producer Rob signing off and reminding you to stay booked all night.